It's great to join the V20 today and join Marco and talk about something that I'm really passionate about, education and digital inclusion. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And I want to kickstart this really with you, Marco. So in the UK, when the pandemic hit 18 months ago, we saw that actually digital poverty came to the surface, inequalities came to the surface like never before. And I was really shocked because actually living in the UK, one of the richest countries in the world, I was really shocked and surprised to see that there were so many people struggling to have access to the internet and have access to affordable digital devices. And actually teachers had to do all their teaching online. And what happened was the people that were already deprived and already struggling at school were pushed further away. It would be great to hear your points of view about how do you think things have gone globally as well?
Hi, everybody. And first of all, thank you for your invitation. Yes, what we have seen, I think all around Europe and all around the globe, not only in Italy where we work, is digital poverty of two different kinds, I think. We have a digital poverty that was derived from, as you were mentioning, the lack of infrastructure, and especially bandwidth, devices, and connection. And this is a kind of poverty that we can see in a more easy way with our eyes. Students that cannot join the lessons because they don't have the tool to access it. But what we have, and this in Italy, for example, has involved about the 20% of the students. But there is something that is definitely more dangerous, which is the digital poverty deriving from the fact that teachers are not able to be effective with these new tools, not just at distance during the emergency, but also in presence when they are in the class and they just have a traditional approach to teaching, which is just talking and then asking students to make exams. So what happened during COVID is that in Italy, the 96% of teachers just kept students in front of Zoom for 6 hours a day. And the attention, well, they couldn't keep the attention high. And what we did to the system is basically for 18 months, having million and million of students not following the lessons at all. And I think that this is even more dangerous than the first kind of digital poverty. And this is the real challenge, the challenge that we have in the long term. So how can we help teachers to change how they teach? And how can we really rely on these technologies to change also the schools when we have came back after COVID? Because technology is really helpful also in presence.
And I think that's a really valid point that you've just raised there, because actually what I have seen is, because when we talk about leaving no one behind, we've got to make sure that teachers are using like a blended model. We know that technology is here, it's going to stay, and we have to move with the times. And we know some young people are very tech savvy and they want to move with the times. But again, like you said, there's like Zoom fatigue. And if you're just talking at somebody through Zoom for 6-7 hours, people's attention span is not that. So it is about being more creative and innovative and using like ideas and hackathons and things like, which I'm always also involved in, because it's about making technology fun for young people as well. I mean, it would be good to just learn a little bit more about some of the things that you have been doing with your platform.
Yes, indeed, the mental switch that we have to do, we as a community, we as a group of teachers, is to start thinking about school, not just about what happens between 8 a.m. and midday in a specific place, in a specific room. Actually, teachers using the so-called instructional design should and have to design experiences which use the entire day. So they don't need to be there every second, of course, but if they start thinking about the fact that students can do the activities that they design even in the afternoon, doing home group works, working with their peers, helping their peers, having a continuous interaction, which is what actually the technology brings, this is definitely more powerful. So the teacher should design what happens during all the day. And when he's in the same room with students, that's the blended learning approach that you were mentioning, he needs to focus his efforts on what it's really meaningful to be done in presence, which is not everything. It's what needs to be done in presence, which is go more in depth in the subjects, helping students compare a content with another content, and so on. And this is useful, I think, not just to make, it's not just about making learning more effective, it's about giving to students the skills that they will need for all their life to be happy as an employee, of course, but also as citizens.
No, that's a really good point. And as you know, next week, the V20 is launching their 3 values as well, and around entrepreneurship and education. And it would be great to hear your points of view on that as well. And how do we make sure that we definitely leave no one behind? And how do we make sure that, you know, sometimes young women might be interested in tech, but it doesn't seem as trendy for young girls, or because there's no many girls going into the coding club or something like that. How can we make it more inclusive? How can we make sure that every young person has the same opportunities?
Yeah, why do we talk about social inclusion when we talk about education? So what I was just mentioning, the fact that we need to help students to develop the skills of a new millennium, means in practice that if you do a different kind of teaching, which is more involving, which is more cooperative, which is more interactive, as I was saying, you help high school students to understand how to speak in public, how to group with their colleagues, how to meet deadlines and goals, how to be able to use the internet to actually understand what's valuable and what's not. And all these skills are very relevant to face what happens after high school. So if we, as a school system, don't provide the tools to help them developing these skills, we are basically saying that who is able to do that by himself because he's lucky, has a good family that can help him or her with that. Mm-hmm. He can travel, he receives stimulus every day from his family, they will be saved. But how about the others? So that's the kind of poverty that I'm really scared about. And that's why we should think that the teaching methodology is strictly connected to social inclusion. So you were mentioning V20 and the 3 values. So entrepreneurship, employability, and education. My provocation is that if we really say, and we have been saying that for years, that we should continue to learn for our entire life because of lifelong learning, well, the 3 things will tend in the long term to be the same thing. So if we really want to build a generation that is not replaceable by robots, we will need to teach them how to learn autonomously. And so employers will pay employees because they know how to learn by themselves. The new challenges that day by day in the office will be available to be met. And that's very interesting, I think. So in the long term, I think that we will not see anymore this strong division between the education phase, the employment phase, and they will tend to be the same. So we will learn at school how to cooperate with others, and we will be paid by our employer to learn and give our contribution.
Really like that. And I just think finally, one of the couple of things that I would probably like to take away is that, you know, I've done a lot of work, and I know we've heard about Afghanistan again earlier today. And obviously I've been involved with doing a lot of evacuations, and we've seen a lot of young people not being allowed to go back to school. We've seen young children who had really excelled in school, and now girls are being pulled out of school and being told that they're not allowed to go back to school, they can't have an education. And we've seen in other parts of the world, in Africa and in the global south. And it's just about how can we make sure that, you know, those young people have access to education as well. You know, this whole, you know, because what I believe is that once you're educated, it empowers you in such a way that you can make choices and live a life the way that you want to. It gives you the freedom to be employable and to become an entrepreneur, to do whatever. And I think if we take away that basic right of an education, I would love to just hear your final thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to be very humble of this answer. So what I said till now, so the fact that we should care a lot about the teaching methodologies and not just infrastructure and technology, I really think that this is true. But this is a first world problem. So I think that this is true for the first war. So getting back to Afghanistan, we have definitely different kind of problems. So in that context, what is not shared enough by the community is how much education is important, which is something that is well known in the first war. So it would be hypocrites, I think, to say that in that context, it's all about teaching methodologies, because what we have just seen, to be pragmatic, is that, well, we are talking about people that are not allowed to actually learn or to have the hope to have somebody teaching to them. So we are talking about something different.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I just wanted to hear your points of view, because when I do talk about, you know, the values and making sure that we have education for all and that every young person has the same life chances, regardless of the postcode lottery where they may be born or where they live or where they grow up. And that we have seen that through the pandemic, as the points that we made earlier, that it's really important. And one of the things that I've also done is actually bring young people together to sort of virtual career fairs and meet people like yourself, teachers, meet people, lawyers, people in finance and other industries, to learn from them as well, to see, you know, what careers are available to them. Because actually a lot of young people have lost their confidence as well, because being at home, parents are not able to commit, parents are not teachers, parents have been trying very hard to juggle all over the world to try and care, try to work. And I just think that, you know, a lot of people have done a lot of great things in the last 18 months, and we have moved forward, and there's a lot of opportunities that have come from that, where people have become innovative and creative, and people have now used tech in a way like they probably would never have done. And I think the pandemic has moved things forward and fast forward things in one way. Have you got any final thoughts there, Marco, before we...
Yes, just to reiterate on this, I agree with you. And of course, technologies like MOOC, Massive Online Open Courses, would enable or can enable anybody from anywhere, so also a 16 years old in Kabul, to learn by himself. But it's not enough. So what we are learning the last 10 years with MOOC is that completion rate are very low, especially on high school students and middle school students, if we don't have somebody on the territory locally to help them. So unfortunately, technology, even providing technology to them, this will not be enough. So I think that we need a local school system to help them. And this is true, especially also for women, for what we have just seen, it's happening in Kabul. And so unfortunately, and I say this being an entrepreneur that builds those kind of platforms and content, but that's not enough. They deserve local help and a local school system.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been a really interesting conversation. And I think, and you've taken away some really good points here today. And I think, you know, we've all got the same values to make sure that every child has a right to an education, every child has a right to thrive and not just survive, regardless of where they are, where they're growing up. And that tech's here, and we've just got to use it and be more innovative and creative and make sure that everyone has access. And I really liked your points of view around the poverty, about young people not being included in certain areas. So thank you so much for that. It's been a really interesting conversation.